Hi, I'm Milan, and I'm with the Cause Production crew, and I'm here with...
Bryan, Austin.
Okay, so Mr. Bryan, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Bryan. I work for Catch Global Foundation. I'm a consultant and a trainer. I have worked in the field of prevention, specifically nicotine prevention and e-cigarette prevention, for about 7 years. And I've worked a lot with youth coalitions as well in changing policies, and also spent a lot of time teaching the curriculum Catch My Breath in the classroom.
Okay. So what is Catch My Breath?
Catch My Breath is a curriculum, it's a program, it's free to all educators in the United States. It's an evidence-based program, and it's the only evidence-based one that shows behavioral change regarding e-cigarette usage in our youth, with our youth. It's a 4-part curriculum. It takes about 35 to 40 minutes once per week, and we know that the students who would try vaping over the next year, if they attend those sessions, that there will be a 45% reduction in the number of students that would try an e-cigarette this next year.
Oh, wow. So how does peer pressure influence your youth smoking habits?
That's a really good question. You know, and there's 2 different ways to look at that. So you've got peer pressure, which a lot of times has a stigma attached to it, where we think of they're going to be kicked out of the group if they don't try it, and that kind of thing. And it's really talking with the students in the classroom. It's not really quite like that. It's more of influence, right, and curiosity. So the peers will want to share something like that. And a lot of times someone will think, you know, I wonder why they like it so much, and it'll make them want to try it. And also, if you're in a group of people, metaphorically, you don't want to be the seam, right? You want it to be more seamless. So if they're passing around and it's something like an e-cigarette, you don't want to be the one that breaks the circle, right? So that's the kind of pressure that we have to deal with sometimes. And that's the great thing about Catch My Breath, is that it shows you and teaches you and it lets you practice how to avoid those situations to start with and how to get out of them if you have to. Real quick, there's another side to it that's a positive side, is that peer influence can be a vessel to help other students make positive choices as well. So if we're teaching Catch My Breath to students and we all learn together positive alternatives, they get to teach and tell their friends through that peer influence positive alternatives instead of using e-cigarettes.
Okay. So how can teens resist the temptation to try smoking or vaping?
So, well, for one thing, like I said, you know, those knowing in advance healthier alternatives, right? But really stopping and thinking. And that's something that can be hard to do in the moment. Like the example I just gave you, if you're in that circle of friends and you weren't prepared for it. So being prepared, utilizing things like Catch My Breath, talking to your parents, do your research, and know like what you will do if and when I end up in that situation. Kind of have that toolkit already in your hip pocket ready to use.
Okay. So what are some of the biggest misconceptions about smoking and vaping?
Yeah, so probably the biggest one, which is very difficult right now because they're so new, is that, oh, well, it's not smoking, so it's not unhealthy. Well, that's not true. We know how unhealthy it is with all these metal particles that we talk about that are in here. We know formaldehyde's in there, and of course, we know nicotine is in there as well. So there's a lot of unhealthy stuff that's going in, that's being delivered to your body. Also, the term vape itself is inaccurate. It's a slang term. Vapor, you know, has water, right? That's water vapor. There's no water in an e-cigarette. So that is a big misconception. And another one would be that a lot of students believe that the only thing that's in an e-cigarette is flavor. And as we know, there's a lot more dangerous chemicals in that.
Okay. So if you could give one piece of advice to youth when it comes to smoking and vaping, what would it be?
Know yourself. And that ties in a lot of things. So knowing yourself, knowing your environment, knowing your surroundings, and doing your research, and knowing your own weaknesses and your strengths. It's okay if you have weaknesses. We all have weaknesses. Know what they are and own them and be prepared for them. You know, when our brain it takes until we're like 25 years old for our brain to fully develop. And if you ever have a fist model of the brain, this is kind of a metaphor, but your thumb would be like your limbic region, and that's your emotions. And this would be your prefrontal cortex. So a minute ago, I talked about stopping and thinking. Well, your prefrontal cortex is what allows you to stop and think, right? But it is not fully grown when you're a teenager. So you have to work a little harder to plan ahead so that you can stop and think about what the consequences could be.
Okay, thank you so much. That's all the questions I have for you today.
Thanks for having me.
Yep, thank you.